All right, Dani, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I think it's a really important conversation that we need to be having right now, especially as we become more aware of what is happening politically, as we become more conscious about how we speak to one another online and offline. This is the conversation I want to be having, and I'm so glad to be having it with you.
Me too. Me too, hermana. I think that it's like I said before, I think it's an important conversation, especially, for our cultura. I think that we are being activated. And even though, it may seem like a separate issue, I think that it's so intertwined in our story, our story of our culture. And so, there's a lot of activations that are happening now. And so I think that as the days go by and as more and more, we get activated, I think that, within our cultura, it's important to talk about this, to talk about ways that we can regulate, to talk about all all the things that can help our beautiful nervous system really regulate and continue day to day. So,
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and so I'm curious as to what's being activated for you because I know a lot is being activated for me. I wanted to know what's coming up for you as we talk about, what's going on between Israel and Palestine and what's, the bigger picture, right? Not just sort of staying in the micro, but looking at the macro, like the bigger forces at play. What is coming up for you inside that?
yeah, like the first when October 7th happened, it was just a sadness, right? A sadness of where we are still in this world, especially after going through 2020, after going through
Yeah.
the massive, a massive and global pandemic, and having to be inside and having to kind of reassess what's important and what's not important. So to be here again today, and for people to be going through the same exact thing, for me, there was a sadness of the collective. Why are we here again? Haven't we learned? So I think that for me, that was my first initial reaction. And of course, as the days and as the months have gone by, it just has gotten into anger, and the feeling of oppression and the feeling of genocide, that strongly lives within my lineage and my ancestors. So,
Right.
what was really activated was a sense of urgency. We have to do something now. And we have to protect the children. I'm going through something with my child, and so
Yes.
that was really, really, really hard for me to witness. Of course, all the people, and of course, the adults, the animals. I mean, let's not forget about these poor animals, and mothers and parents and grandparents. But for me, what was really present, and because I'm going through something, very, very hard with my daughter, it just hit me, right? And so all of those generational traumas and wounds and everything that was activated within us. And we have to understand that, sometimes when we haven't done our spiritual work, right, and we don't know that the oppressed sensations or the things that are alive within our DNA gets passed down through our DNA. And now
Yeah.
it's scientifically proven that
Yes.
that happens, right?
Yes.
So when something like this is occurring and we feel hopeless, and we feel, we're witnessing what we're witnessing, right? We're witnessing genocide. Our whole body remembers from our ancestors. And so, of
Absolutely.
course, we're going to go into a fight or flight or freeze mode. Like,
Yes.
this is what's being activated within the comunidad. Like, whether you know it or not, whether
Mhm.
you're like, why am I so angry? Or why do I feel so sad? Or why do I feel
Yes.
all this stuff? And it's really the activation of the DNA that's been passed down through our lineage. It's
Yes.
literally within our cultura what is going on the other side. So of course, like on both sides. So I just want to make sure that I think that for me, it's a really important to understand both sides and
Mhm.
not put hatred towards a group of people, because I think that that's, we've been witnessing that of like having an opinion and it's like a group of people.
Right, right.
I think that it's really about, like you said before so beautifully, it's like a bird's eye view, right, of what's going on, and having compassion for what's being activated within the Jewish community,
Yes.
and also the oppression and the genocide of what's going on the other side, so
Yes.
I think that it's it's having that bird's eye view and looking at it from both sides.
Yes, yes, really being able to hold space for all of it, right? For
Yeah.
every person's experience, every human's experience. Like, when the events in October happened, when the attack happened in October, I reached out to some my closest Jewish friends, and was just expressing my sadness and like, are you okay kind of thing. Um because I have like a personal sort of investment in Jewish culture and the Jewish community, as a Gentile, but and so that was like my first instinct. And then I had a friend reach out to me who has Middle Eastern roots, and she was sort of inviting me into activism, and I've always been a political person, and just kind of like holding space for like my connection to the Jewish faith, and not the Jewish faith so much as like the some of the cultural values that I've learned and that I've really come to appreciate. And then also like what you were saying, this feeling of like understanding what colonization means on a cellular level, right? Through epigenetic transfer, through trauma, and feeling like that's being kind of like rattled in my cells and in my body. And then like I resonate so much with what you said about like, as a parent right now and having lost my children's father and being protective over my children and their emotional health, I feel like I'm on mama bear mode. And so when I see a video of a child screaming to stop, I just want to like, I would be like, motherfuckers, stop. Like, that's kind of like how I want to come in and be like, all right, y'all motherfuckers need to like, you know, that's sort
Oh
of what,
yeah, me too. Me too.
that's what rises up in me, and can really inflame my trauma. And I feel tears coming up in my eyes as I say this, because like, yeah, sometimes like I have days where I just cry. Like I need to protect myself from watching all of the videos. I will be informed enough so that I know what's going on, but I also need to care for myself and be an informed citizen, and also have a respect for the inflammation, right? And to know
Right.
like, okay, this is triggering me. I'm not going to expose myself to any more triggers. I'm just going to take a break and like rest and soothe, and then I can come back. But I need to also like go in and pull out, go in and pull out, just to take care of myself and be able to show up in my day to day, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important. And like, for me, I think it's important to be able to take care of yourself and really regulate your nervous system because, listen, I really, I've been going through, I've shared with you what I've been going through. And when I first got activated, and I feel like this is like that same kind of activation, when I first got activated with the survival of, keeping my youngest alive,
Yeah.
um, I was in like fight or flight mode. Like I was mama bear. What like going and going and going. And what I've learned about that space and what is helping me today is really the self-care and activating the things that are taking care of myself. Like drinking more water than usual, because when we're in that fight or freeze or the three F's,
Yes.
like, um um when we're in that space, like our body needs more water. It also needs more gut. We need to take care of our gut a more, so
Yeah.
drinking something with probiotic, having like emergency so that your immune system isn't lower, because there's a
Yes.
whole bunch of stuff that's happening within us
Chemicals.
that is
Yes.
all chemicals, the cortisone, like we're being like the adrenal fatigue, like, and
Yeah.
we can't keep on going. So like that whole taking a pause and doing that for yourself and your family is so important.
Hmm.
And it's so crucial for the longevity of something. Like we can't go in hot, right? And start waving our fist and just keep on going,
Yes.
because at the end we're going to be burnt out. And the objective of this whole, I feel the objective of this whole space of what is happening is really to have a resolution for peace and for the stopping of killing. I mean, on both sides. So like both sides need to, like, there has to be something a lot better. And I was talking to a friend of mine who we were talking about, like, she was saying, like, well, if ceasefire happens, like they're just going to go after Israel, right? Because it's Hamas. And so, and that could happen, and I'm not saying that it can't happen, but we can't, what I don't think is, and this is what I feel like is a trauma response. What I think is like taking a step back and really and saying, is that really true? And how can we as a society and as militant and having so much knowledge and technology and all the things that the government has, to not find the pointed people who are bringing this harm and not do something about that and not involve children and citizens that are innocent,
Mm-hmm.
right?
There are other
I
ways,
just
is what you're saying. There are other ways, and let's just find them. Yeah.
Yeah, let's be creative, because if there was, I think of our ancestors and I think of, you know, the way that things happened, and history can't keep on repeating itself. Like, when is enough is enough? Like,
Hmm.
we've seen this over and over and
Right.
over
It's so,
again.
oh, it's so done. It's so fucking done. Yeah. The
It's so
strategy doesn't
done.
work. Yeah. Yeah. It's
And we're being activated left and right, and we're being asked in our hearts, is this really the way that we need to do this? Like, earth pachimama is not ours. Like, in
mm-hmm.
that, when we have separated our essence, our body, our everything from a separation of what pachimama is,
Yes.
we have created this distortion of mine, his,
Right.
mine's more, yours is less. Like, we have created this distortion of power. And
Yeah.
we just need to go back. And there's so many prophecies, that have been said in many tribes, that this is a time for the earth to be activated. This is a time for us, meaning for us to understand that we are part of the earth. We have the elements within us.
Yeah.
when I do cacao ceremonies, part of the cacao ceremony, to invocate the cacao, ish cacao into the drink before the journey begins. There is a thanking of the elements. It's like thank you because the elements, and we know in the indigenous communities that the elements are within us, right? So we
Yeah.
have fire, we have water, we have air, we have the earth, we have tierra, and so when we start connecting back to that essence of I am of the earth and earth is of me, and we are all human. We all do the same exact things, right? We all get up in the morning, we all go to the bathroom, we all we all have, some people have children, more responsibilities than others, but we all live and we all die. And in that space of living and dying, we just need to remember that we all have the sameness inside of us. And how can we connect to that without being activated within our trauma?
Hmm.
Because we know that in the subconscious, right? Let's just talk about the subconscious. We've been programmed from 0 to 7, right? And so everything that we do in this activation and what we're being activated in is from directly from a trigger of that subconscious programming,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And of course, and having compassion for all the people that are, myself included, who have been activated in this. And it's really beautiful to really step back and say, okay, am I being activated because of a trauma? Like, where is this coming from?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
getting deeper within
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting curious, getting really curious about why you're feeling, and also giving yourself the time, which I don't always do, to really be with it, to really have a relationship with what's happening inside of your body, right? Because we
Yeah.
want relief. We want to take the pain away, and we will then write something or say something, and it can come from an impulsive place, from a place of wanting to relieve the pain, of wanting to sort of like make it less instead of relating to it, right? This happens in marital relationships. It happens in our relationship with our children, right? We get uncomfortable, we have a fear reaction, and then right, we sort of discharge it instead of having a relationship with it. So I feel like something that I'm always working on is that the holding of that internal space, and the holding of the curiosity of like, all right, like, what are you feeling? What's happening here? What do you need? I feel like the most important question that we can ask ourselves as regulated, embodied leaders is, what do you need right now? Like, maybe it is to say something, but do you need to say something? How do you want to say it? How do you want to lead? From where do you want to lead? What is your objective? Um, yeah, and always asking the questions like, what do you need on an emotional level? What do you need on a physical level? Sometimes it is drink more water. Sometimes it is put on the baggiest sweatpants you can find and just like curl up on the couch for a couple of hours of just like, I just want to soothe myself, right? Um, and being compassionate when you do get triggered, right? Because we're so loaded up with all of the unprocessed generational trauma that's been, right, just passed down through epigenetics. And so it's going to happen. We're not going to get mad at ourselves when it happens, like, oh fuck, I'm triggered again. But like, okay, so what do I do now? Well, how do I care for myself now? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I personally listen, I think that everything is information. When I took on there is this when I did not this summer, last summer, I heard this woman who I connected to in Montana, and we were talking about marriage. We were deep in talking about marriage. And I and we were talking about like, oh, I don't like this and I don't like that, and And the greatest thing that she ever said to me was like, everything is just information. Like it's just information, even the triggers, because triggers are really what is still alive in us and what we still believe
Yes.
within us. And I'm sorry about my puppy.
No.
Um,
Okay.
what is alive within us, and what is it that I still believe within me
Yeah.
that is true,
Yeah.
right? And so triggers are really never about the person who's saying it, because when you come from a space of, and I love that you touched on that, because I really think that as an embodied leader, you do your work, right? You cleanse your energy. For me, like, I do cacao. I've gotten into, doing psyche with my business partner. I've gotten into somatic movement and and trauma, like just moving the trauma out of my body.
Yes.
And you come from a space of an aligned perspective, right? And you're just putting out your truth, right? The truth that at this moment, right? The truth can be changed the following day. And
Right.
that's the truth. Like, it can be, I can say, like, this is what I believe today, and then the next day it could be, you know what? That was really harsh, and maybe it wasn't really, it was alive because I was hurting, or I was doing something, or I just wanted, it was alive in me at that moment, and it could shift. But if you're doing it from a space of really being connected, really have done your energy work, really have connected to, like, letting go of all that trauma that's built within us, then when you speak, you're speaking from a space of your truth. And
Mm-hmm.
whoever gets triggered after that, it's like, okay, I did my work, right? And now why are you being triggered? Because this is my truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and unfortunately in the online space, right, that can create sort of this, like a contagion of triggering, right? One person speaks their truth and then the other person is triggered, and then, right, there is a war that happens in the comments, and then the person who originally spoke is then also triggered because, right, they feel attacked. And it's like, I feel like, something that I want to talk about on this episode too is like, when we speak our truth as thought leaders, how can we take care of ourselves, right? Because a lot of people are afraid of speaking their truth because they will be canceled, they will be criticized, they will get pushback, they will, like rejection and abandonment, right? Those are the things that we're afraid of. Those are the things that we most, our social nervous system most fears, which is why people are often silent. A lot of us don't even know what the fuck to say, right? Because we're so frozen, we're so horrified by what's happening. It's like, how do you even, like, if I say something, does it mean anything? Do I help at all? Right? But caring for yourself as a thought leader is so important because it's important. Thought leadership is important because we need leaders who are regulating and aware and conscious and embodied, right? All of those things. And we're also human, right? Our shit's gonna get triggered. And like, on Monday, as I was sharing before we got on the before we started recording, all of my childhood, like a particular piece of my childhood stuff came up, and it was all around like, everybody hates you, everybody hates you. And I was like, my thoughts were running like a hamster wheel, like, my landlord hates me, my neighbors hate me because I make too much noise. And it made it very hard for me to reach out to my friends and ask for support, which is ultimately what I ended up doing, and ended up being like what kind of like got me back down and got me connected to my body again, because I was so, like, my brain was screaming, right? It was just so like scared. And when I talked to my friend on Tuesday morning, I just felt myself snap back into my body. On Monday, I was really good to myself. I took a I basically took the day off. I was like easy and gentle on myself. I did a lot of breathing. I moved my body, right? I moved my body and I like observing the thoughts and not reacting from those thoughts, right? When I get in my head, I know that it's not real. I've been around the block long enough to know that when my head is like, "Zzz," it's like, okay, I'm having an activation, and I can sort of like observe it and just kind of be like, okay, we'll just wait until this passes, and I'm not going to pay. I'm just going to watch it like a ticker tape, but not really like believe what I'm thinking and be like, oh my God, my landlord really does hate me. And no, I'm like, okay, wow, that's interesting, right? Again, like from the perspective of, oh, that's information, interesting.
Yeah.
But it's hard to hold that neutrality and hard to hold that space sometimes, right? I was really uncomfortable. I couldn't even like I was so frozen, I couldn't even smile. And I told my kids, like, I'm just having a hard day. I'm having a day today. And it's not you, just having a hard day. And that's the way that I was able to have compassion with myself and also care for myself. And then finally, after whatever 24 hours, come back into my body and be able to write something in response to what had happened that felt like, this feels more me. This feels more congruent. This is the way that I want to show up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the way that you get to that space is really, I think that you did it, and I think that you did it beautifully. And I think that that's the part where compassion comes in. Like, we all get in a space where we get activated. And, we're so afraid. Sometimes we're afraid of our feelings. And I talk about this a lot, about rage and about anger and about allowing that
Yes.
to be, and allowing for emotions to be alive, right? It's like
Yes.
it takes 90 seconds to feel your emotions, like to have
Yeah.
you to feel the emotion and for it to pass, right?
Yes. Yes.
And the reason why it becomes so big is because we hold it in, right?
Yeah.
We hold it
We
in
don't let it
within us,
through.
right? So,
Yeah.
like, imagine if it was like, "Oh my god, I'm afraid," and calling the person and just saying, "I'm making up a story," calling the friend, "I'm making up a story that everybody hates me. Can you just, like,
Yeah.
let me know
Just let
what
me
the
know.
story, if like, I'm making up this story in my head." And when you don't have that availability of connecting to that person, I always decide to move my body, because moving my body and letting that trauma release from the body, you're literally allowing your mind to take a step through, you're just like stop it, like, right? And
Yes.
physically sometimes just saying stop with your mind and allowing your body to really release that trauma by shaking or somatic movement. Like,
Mhm.
go on YouTube and look for somatic movement connections. Yesterday was a really hard day for me, and I was being activated in a different sense, the same and different. And you know I was in an open trauma loop. So, like, of course, everything that was happening was really big, and it just seemed like I was never gonna find a solution.
Yes.
And when, I use cacao regularly. So, and I noticed that I hadn't had cacao in a couple of days. So I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah. Like, I have to drink my cacao. I have to just get grounded and let that medicine go inside it takes 20 minutes for that medicine to be activated within the body. And it's really something that I have used so that I can center into my being, right? And it's continuously letting the energy go of the collective
Mhm.
and coming back to your own energy. Now,
Yes. Yes.
do leaders make mistakes? Of course, like,
Right.
nobody, like you said, we're all human. So,
Yeah.
like, is there going to be a space where you feel inside of your body this activation from what's happening, and especially in the cultura, like of anger and wanting to blame like the big person, and wanting to blame like anybody who's like, at this moment, anybody who's Jewish, and wanting to do something
Or the
like,
government.
or the government and all this stuff. Of course, like, who isn't human who hasn't thought of that? But then you step back and you say, okay, is that really the truth?
Yeah.
And where is it coming from? And how can we find a better solution for
Mhm,
something that has been going on for thousands of years? And
mhm.
and this is what I'm going to say. Even if it's been going on for thousands of years, and people are out there and saying like, well, what can we do about it? There is things that you can do about it, and you can be supportive of both sides.
Mhm,
It doesn't just have to be a one-sided. Right now, it seems like it's a one-sided fight because of what's happening and the destruction, that's the massive destruction and massive, massacres that are happening, and the genocide that is happening. So it may seem like it's one-sided, but let's not forget the other side of it also, and the the trauma loop that they're in. I mean, like like they've also experienced genocide. They're also being activated, and
right.
being and they're not they're, a lot of the people haven't done the work and haven't said like, okay, what is the best solution to this? So it's up to us to really get into the space of, let's have these conversations. Like,
Mhm,
what are you feeling? And why do you feel that way? Why
mhm.
do you think, so I had this conversation just the other day. It's like, why do you think that because I'm asking to cease fire, that I'm against Jewish people? Like, there's nothing about that that is even remotely true. I'm just saying cease fire because what is happening is horrific, and it's challenging, and it's not right, and it shouldn't ever happen again. Like, not happening for anybody.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so that is the conversation that I would be interested to having with the Jewish community, is like, what is it like, explain to me, right, in the space of like, we're being activated, all of us are being activated within our trauma response. Like, let's talk about beyond that trauma response, and how we can resolve this
Yeah. Yeah, and
in
I
any
and
way, shape, or form.
yes, and I know that when I'm in, when Hurricane Maria happened, for example, I was so in my trauma that it was really hard for to even have a conversation, because I was just like so heartbroken over my land being destroyed. What I feel like is my land, what isn't my land, but Mother Earth, the destruction of Mother Earth, and just like I was just in so much pain that it's so hard to have those conversations from the place of pain unless there is that space of safety when when yeah, to be able to hold that space of safety where it's like, yes, you can bring all of yourself, you can bring the rage and the anger and the sadness and the grief, and I will be here for you without trying to intellectualize it, without trying to sort of put a quick fix solution or say, but what about, right, where we um bypass or deny what you're feeling, right? I feel like what you said earlier about making space for the rage and the grief, that is so important. And that's ultimately what connects us all to our humanity. We all have these fucking feelings, right? We all have
Yeah.
these emotions. And I feel like that's the route that I would love more of us to take, is around holding space, whether it's, community circles or whether it happens one on one, for us to be able to just be like, okay, just give it to me. Just give me all, like, dump it out. Give me all the stuff. Like, just let it run through. Let yourself have it. Whatever the rage is, like, express it, right? Even if it's inappropriate, even if it's, right, hard to hear or
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that that's the most, and I mean, for me, that's the part that is the most important part. Like, we
Yeah.
can listen, we can meditate. Meditation is really, really important. We can, do all the things, but I think that at the end of the day, rage that lives within us has to be expressed, because if we can't express it, and it doesn't, like, there's this beautiful practice. It's called, I can't think of it right now. And it's called aspecting, like an
Okay.
emotional aspecting.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful practice that I learned from another woman from out there in Montana. Um, can you hold on for 1 second? Can you pause
Sure.
this so I can just
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
all
You were
right.
talking about yes, aspecting.
Yeah, emotional aspecting, which I learned from another woman out there in Montana. And it's really about connecting to that rage, connecting to that sadness, and being able to speak what your truth is. And it's not like, this is where it really becomes like a beautiful practice, because it has nothing to do with the perspective of that other person
Yes.
or that
Yes.
other group of people.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what I'm feeling. This is what it is. What's the story that is running through my body. This is how, like, this is the expression that I need to say.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then the aspecting really is that the other, that you yourself turn around, right? There's like a shifting of perspective that you are that other person.
Right. Right.
So
Exactly.
it's
You
like
are then the mirror.
I did aspecting, a lot of my aspecting with my daughter, like, this last time. And it was like I just expressed everything. Like, I said all the things, and I said what I was feeling without having, and Riley, my daughter, wasn't there. It was just me and this space and the facilitator. And it was like just crying and raging and saying all the things, and then turning around and aspecting as if I was my daughter, and just saying everything that, channeling everything that I think that she would say.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to have this beautiful understanding, and you just release that rage
Yeah.
and ultimately release whatever you're thinking. Because if it lives inside of you, I love Gaber Mate, and he, like, his whole space of the trauma that lives within our bodies, it gets stored within our bodies and
Yeah.
eventually ends into like some form of disease, which
Right.
is, that's an indigenous knowledge that has been
Yeah.
passed down through our generations forever, right? So that
Yeah.
it's actually coming out into the world is just really beautiful. And
Yeah.
for like the mainstream to kind of see, like, oh, this could be a possibility. Like, our indigenous community already knew that. And so that's why, when we practice this, when you go back to the medicina of our ancestors knew how to release rage.
Yes.
Our ancestors
Yes.
knew how to connect to the land. Our
Yes.
ancestors knew all the things that they needed to do in order for this system, our body system, to be
Mm-hmm.
at its optimal, healthy, like, it just created a beautiful ecosystem within our bodies,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
it was about balance. It was about slowing down. It was about
Yes.
understanding,
Balance. Balance
like,
is
understanding.
regulation, right?
Yeah,
Balance is
balance is
regulation.
regular. It's such regulation. And so even when you're activated, right? And you're like raging and you feel like cuddling, putting on your sweatpants and going and taking a rest, that's literally your body wisdom doing what it needs to do, because that's what our ancestors have been programmed to do. There
Yeah.
is this beautiful story. that I always love to share because it just goes into the depths of that we are so primal, right? I was learning how to facilitate cacao, right? And learning and connecting to that plant medicine. And I've been connecting to that plant medicine since 2013. And this year, like, in the last 3 years, it's been more
Yeah.
like a mental wellness connection.
Yeah.
And so I was in class, like quote unquote class with the elders. And we were learning medicine songs that we sing during cacao. And so I had said to my teacher, Florencia, I said to her, there is this sound. Now, the most beautiful thing is that she comes from Mapuche nations, which
Yeah.
I come from a Mapuche nation. So, and I said to her, like, there is this beat that I keep on hearing within me. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what I'm like, where it's coming from. And so at the end, to respect the Mayan, the Mayan culture and how they do cacao ceremonies, like I don't do those songs because it's I want to respect the cultura and how it's done.
Hmm.
But then when I was looking and researching, the Mapuche nation, I stumbled upon a sound of the beat of people singing within ceremony. And I stopped and I listened, and it was the same exact beat and the same
Oh,
exact song that wanted to come out. And it was like in celebration of life, right? And this is why, like, within us, there's so much information and so much knowledge. So,
yes.
how did I know that beat? Like, I don't know. I haven't been in the Mapuche nation in the on the land. We haven't been on that land for centuries. Like
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
ancestors were taken off their lands and created, we needed to assimilate into a cultura that really wasn't ours.
Yeah.
And so our profound connection of the day to day has been lost. Like we have created, have through my grandmother, my great grandmother, and my great grandmother have passed on some knowledge and some medicina, but it's never like this is the song or this is what we used to do.
Right.
So
Right.
to be able to
Tap
have
into that
that
beat.
within me and
Yes.
hear it in audio from that land, everything lives within us. And so when we're being activated, it's just really important to take care of you.
To
Like
listen, right? To
to
listen to what's
listen.
being activated and take care.
Yeah. And then, like, if people, of course, people are going to respond to that trigger, but it's our job as the leader to be like, okay, I see you and I see your trigger and I hear you. And it's not my trigger to carry because it doesn't live within me.
Hmm.
And I'm just putting out my truth to what I'm seeing. And triggers are really beautiful for people. Like,
Hmm.
I personally love triggering people because it's like it's great because now we can heal. Like
Hmm.
now, like
Hmm.
this activation right here is allowing us to see each other and to communicate in a way that maybe we haven't been able to communicate before.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what if we called activations awakenings?
Yeah,
Little awakenings.
right. And it's like it doesn't have to be like it's not like listen, our bodies are right now in that fight or flight or
Yeah.
freeze mode.
Yeah.
So of course,
Absolutely.
like anything that comes at us, we're
It's
going to
gonna
be
feel
like
like,
it's going to feel bigger than it is,
yes, yes,
right?
yes.
And so in our minds, like saying to our minds, because we can never get into our subconscious, right? In our minds, we can say, "Hey, we're just being really activated. Our survival mode is being activated. and like put your hand to your heart, because just even yourself touching you, like the body doesn't know that you're the
It's
one
not
who's
you.
touching you. It's like it just knows that something is touching you, right? And so
Yeah,
like when you're being activated, just place your hand in your heart and just say, I love you. I love
yeah.
you. I love you. And it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to cry. It's okay to rage. It's okay to scream. It's okay to like all the things.
Mhm,
And it's
mhm.
okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you're going to take care of you.
yeah. And to wrap up this conversation around like leadership and really embodying our leadership, when we when we activate others and others respond to that activation or react to that activation, I think a lot of us can go, right? And then we go in ourselves, we go into ourselves, and then we want to hide. We want to hide under the covers. We want to like never show up again because we're assaulting ourselves because we did something wrong or we hurt people, and right. And again, the skills that we're talking about on this episode are so, so vital in being able to have compassion for yourself, forgive yourself, and then continue to show up. Like, don't disappear. Don't like take yourself out and be like, oh, I fucked up. I'm not really a leader. Oh my God. And then you take yourself out and then you're done. Right. And then you disappear for, I don't know, 1, 2 weeks, maybe more. And then you come back in. No, like keep showing up. Like it's okay to be messy. It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to get it wrong. And it's like we're always failing forward. Like I embrace that. Like I am going to fail and I'm going to love failing because I'm going to learn,
Yeah. Oh
right?
my God. I love that, because it is so true. It is so true.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
and I think that the more that we show up, and I had this I just did this cacao ceremony not too long ago, and las velas, the candles that I had gotten, one of the women, when you do the journey, and
Yeah.
and she got out of the journey, and I usually go, it was a small group, so when it's a small group I go around and ask them to share about their experience if they want to.
Yeah.
And so the first person that I asked to share, she was like, I am so angry. I am so angry. I'm like, this is so great. What are you angry about? And she's like, I'm so angry at your candles and how much toxins I'm smelling. And I was like, oh, great. Like hating on my, like legit hating on my candles.
Right.
And
But
and
welcoming
you
that.
know, but what a beautiful invitation. And I said to her, like, thank you for deepening me, for deepening me into this, to know like the difference between candles and the difference between what clothes I'm wearing. Like, I think that this is great. And what happened within the group, she got so activated that she activated somebody else. And now they're planning on bringing that activation to change the school menu so that the kids can eat cleaner. I mean, I was like, but right? But what if I came home and I was like, "Oh my god, I made a mistake. Why didn't I know that I should have used a different form of candles? Like
Right.
I didn't know." And like just hating and hating and hating.
Yes.
Instead, I took that opportunity, and as the leader, right, took that opportunity and say, wow, this is really beautiful to deepen my practice even with my ceremony. I think that
Yes.
that's just
Yes.
it's an honor. And
Right.
and when you take it into like, this is information, and then it's not like, it's not against me, right? This is information for me to know. I mean, the universe is pretty amazing when it
Yeah.
comes to that kind of stuff. So keep
That's a
showing
great.
up.
Yes,
Yeah.
keep showing up and you're gonna get knocked back, and that's okay. It's part of the process, and keep failing forward. Be willing to do it messy. Be willing to be the villain in somebody else's story. Like such an important lesson. That's been such an
Yeah.
important lesson. That's medicine. That is
That's medicine.
medicine right there. Yes.
Yeah. And we
Dani,
can't
thank
be
you so much.
people pleasers for
Right,
everybody,
right.
you know?
Yes.
So,
Yeah. We can
thank
be,
you
but
for
it
this.
doesn't serve anybody.
Exactly. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for this beautiful conversation and the
Yeah.
invitation to have this conversation. It's beautiful. I think
Yeah.
it's
And
important.
for the people who are listening, like, if they ever wanted to do cacao ceremonies with you, how can they get in touch with you? What's available?
Yeah. Yeah, so I have Conexión al Corazón .co is my website. And it has all the information. I do ceremonies every single Sunday. So I have a
Oh.
subscription that's $25. And I get to give you recipes and meditation and prompts for that month. And we meet every single week for an hour for ceremonia. So, it's a beautiful way to start getting connected to la medicina at a more regular rate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for those people who want to connect deeper into the roots, for me, ancestral work has been one of my beautiful medicines. So I have this program. It's a 6-month container, and right now I'm taking 3 people, only 3, because I think that it's really important to um, be devoted to the three
Mm-hmm.
people. And the program is called Origen, and you can find it on that website also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I mean, every all the information is there. You can work with me one on one. I also have a podcast that I would love to invite you to, and
Yeah, I'll
it's
do
called
it.
Ancestor. It's called Ancestor Hour, and I do it with Georgina, and we talk about the ancestors and all that beautiful information on how to connect, how to deepen, how to build it alive, how to talk, about trauma, about,
Yes.
all the things that is just, in our comunidad we're being awakened to.
Awesome, awesome. And I also have um a free course that you can get from my homepage on my website called Flex, the 5 pillars of
Oh,
nervous system capacitation and resilience, which is basically like the 5 pillars of my embodiment practice that I use in order to stay consistent as a leader, to keep showing up in my business. So if that's something that's interesting to you, we talked about some of those practices, the emotional fluency and letting yourself have your rage and anger. That's part of it, but there's also all of these other pieces. So if that's interesting to you, you can
I'm
download
excited.
it too.
Yeah, I am gonna download it. I suggest everybody download that because
Yeah.
it's important. The more and more I do this work, the more and more the nervous system work
Yeah,
is just so important. So I'm just so
exactly.
happy that you have that.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Dani. Mwah. Sending you
Okay.
love
Besitos.
and thank you so much for this.
Thank you.